So I'm starting out here with a couple of blues, an opaque one, a transparent one, some transparent quinacridone gold, and Indian yellow, and an opaque, what's this, Naples yellow. And then I'm going to mix this yellow and green to make a nice yellow, green, and white celadon, which is a nice gray neutral. And I'm setting up some colors to make bubblegum pink, which is quinacridone magenta, bright screech red, I think that's pyrrole, but you could use cadmium, and white. And I'm just leaving the second palette out so I can develop more colors as I go. And I have a few brushes, and you can't see the palette while I'm working because I'd have to zoom out too far, and you wouldn't be able to see what I was doing as well. So that's the trade-off. Okay, this is quinacridone gold. I'm starting by just laying down some color in some areas. So I'm kind of making some shapes. This is an opaque blue, and that quin gold is still wet, but I'm going to see what happens if I do that. Ooh, yeah, we get a little mixing there, a little blending. This is that celadon. And again, the quin gold is still wet, so it's going to blend a little bit. And then this is sort of the bubblegum pink, kind of lipstick pink. Get a little more white in that. There. Ooh. Okay, now I have a hard edge here, and I'm looking sort of for contrasts, so maybe what I want to do is put some more wet paint here and get a soft edge here. And in this first layer of my paint improvisation, I'm really just laying out color and making sure I have a nice variety, and kind of looking towards that quadrant test. Quadrant's going to be different from the others and so forth. So I'm just paying attention to a few different aspects of the colors I'm putting down. So that yellow-green, that's a fairly bright color. And in terms of contrast, this is fairly bright, whereas that's fairly dull. That's kind of beautifully luminous. It's a transparent color. This blue and this pink are opaque and sort of mid-range value. Let's try a really light color. Okay, this is that this mixed with a bunch of white. And I'm going to go back to blue here, but this is manganese blue, a nice transparent warm blue. If I take that blue over here, and the paint is still a little bit wet, so I'm not really layering yet because you need to let the paint dry before layering really works. But I am going to lift that, see what happens. Oh, interesting. Ha! So that begins to get some texture. Try that again. So now, maybe I can see how that does layer. Now, if it's not obvious, I'm not trying to make a beautiful painting here. I'm just improvising with the colors I've chosen, and I may add to that. And I'm looking for contrasts. That doesn't mean high color contrast everywhere, but for example, I have a high color contrast here, and I have a little lower contrast here. So this contrasts with that. And I am trying not to balance this out. So as much as I might be tempted to put some of this red up here so that it looks, you know, like it ties it together, I'm not going to do that. So I am after maximum variety. That's sort of like my theme. And within that theme, I'm improvising, which is to say I'm making it up as I go along. I'm going to add another color here, this lavender. And what I'm noticing about this is that it's sort of similar value, maybe a little bit darker than the pink. And maybe to the red. It's hard to tell. But it's not a high contrast in terms of value. Yeah, it looks like it's similar to the red and a little bit darker than the pink. And it's sort of in the same color family. And I'm noticing I am making a hard edge here. I'm noticing that it's an opaque color so that if I paint into the pink area, which is dry now, it covers it completely. And here I'm making these very sort of neat and tidy opaque marks. I could kind of drag the brush, make something a little bit different. Well, that's interesting. And here's my Naples yellow. Pretty much straight up Naples yellow. And although it's an opaque color, you can see a little bit of the pink through it. What I mean by opaque, that you can't see quite through it, it's not clear, transparent the way the Quin Gold is, but it may take a couple of coats to really obscure the paint underneath it. So I might use that. I might decide, oh, well, let's do that, and let's have that blue showing through, and then you get a little bit of layering going on. When you have extra paint on your brushes before cleaning them, just let go of the paint on a scrap piece of paper. Got a little of this red. Ew. Got some purple. Some Quin Gold with a little bit of that Indian yellow. And some of this gray Celadon with white. And that might be the basis. Oh, one more. Yellow-green. This might be like part of the first layer of another drawing. Or not. It might just be a scrap piece of paper. Or I could cut out a piece and use it as collage. So, what next? I could begin with some layering. So I'm going to paint a little bit of white. I don't know where, so I'll just do it. And this is white mixed with a little bit of glazing medium. So I put the white down, and then I'm using the brayer to spread it out. And I don't want to spread it out over the whole page because I want to make sure that the piece has maximal variety. So I'm kind of looking at small bits. I'm not trying to zoom out and look at the whole very often, except to check for variety. So I'm not zooming out to see if the piece hangs together. I'm zooming out to see that it doesn't. I'm going to do that again with this green gold, which is a really luminous, transparent paint. This is about dry now, so I can go over that white without mixing it. And I could try this brayer. So I'm beginning to get some nice layering in here. I'm going to go in here and deepen that quinacridone gold. Extend it a little bit. Okay, so the green gold here is still a little bit tacky, so I'm going to take some water in a spray bottle and just spritz it on. And then wait for a few seconds. And then blot that with a paper towel, and you'll see you get this little pattern or texture of the water droplets. And then I'm going to do a little sgraffito in here. Let me just see what happens if I blot some of that. Ooh, kind of cool there. Maybe I'll block the whole thing. going to clean up this red a little bit. I have a raggedy edge here, which is fine, but part of it looks just a little accidental from this process, this graffito. So here, I'm thinking I could clean up that edge a little bit, and then that, and I'm doing this with the opaque blue. So I'm going to extend that opaque blue. So in so doing, I'm kind of defining this shape a little more clearly. Going with the layering a little bit more, I'm going to sort of do like we did with the speed painting. And I don't know where, so I have to just do it somewhere. Speed painting, right? Oh, I love the way that works. And then I'm going to take this graphite and make some lines, which you can see it's working more like sgraffito. I'm not really getting the graphite in there. I mean the graphite color. Let's try, oh yeah, so that gives me a sort of graphite line. See, isn't this fun? Just fooling around. With no pressure to make a good piece of art. I'm just like seeing what these marks do. And you put really different marks together and you get unexpected, interesting combinations. You can also get ugly painting, and you can also get brilliant painting. You know, you just don't know. I could add really different kinds of lines using I have a really fine pit pen here. And let this line interact with the graphite line. And yet it remains kind of independent, doing its own thing. That's almost dry. Pattern is another thing you can work with. And stamping is a great technique for that. This is just a homemade stamp. These are plastic washers on mat board. I sort of love the way that bridges the purple here and blends right in, and then extends over the turquoise and then back, blends into the purple a little bit more. What we got? Here's a white crayon. I'm going to kind of do a white on white. And that pattern can kind of skip over these lines, sort of smudging the graphite there. That's all right. One thing about maximal variety is that it's not equivalent to maximal busyness all over. So it's fine to have some quiet spots. So I'm going to quiet down this area in the top left. Okay, so I've dried that with a hairdryer, and now I'm going to do a little stenciling. This is a stencil that Stencil Girl sent to me. And this is an alcohol wipe. They come like that. You can also use a paper towel with just rubbing alcohol on it. And I'm going to do this subtractive thing with the stencil, which is to say I'm taking the paint off with the alcohol. So let's see what that did. Ooh, interesting. Yeah, so this is getting all kind of busy again. Might be alright. Or I might want to just take that alcohol and do something else here.